Warren, thank you very much for joining us tonight and taking the time. I know you've been on the Zoom book tour for the last 3 months, maybe or more.
Yeah,
Warren?
I've been, thanks, George. I really appreciate you having me on, and it's always great to be back in the greater Boston and New England area. I'm really happy for the New England Patriots that they've reloaded and are ready for another great season. Um,
That could be an entire another Zoom call for sure, Warren. Or that all conversation.
just remember, Bill Belichick came from the Giants. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, no, I've been. The book, George, was originally supposed to come out in the fall,
yeah.
and with COVID, it got moved back. A lot of books have been pushed back, and so it's been an interesting journey. It seems like I've been promoting it forever, but you're right. Tomorrow, the 23rd, is the first official day. It starts shipping, and it's really exciting to get it. Although it's really weird, George. On Sunday, I got an email from an inventor in Huntington Beach, California, who bought the book at a Barnes and Noble. So
Really?
somehow it must have shipped into Barnes and Noble, I guess, or at least the store. And he was asking me questions, and I was writing him answers already. So
Well, let's get right into it, Warren. How long did it take you to write it? And I know
yeah.
thinking about it and actually sitting down, just the beginning part. Take us through that beginning process because I think it'll help people understand what it takes to do something like this.
Yeah, well, a good question. It took the better part of 2 years, and which is much longer than I thought. And
Wow.
I worked with an inventor named Jeff Mangus. I think you know Jeff, don't you, George?
Yeah, I know of them. Yeah.
And really wonderful person. I've known Jeff for years and years, and he lives in West Virginia, and he has helped people with books. He's written his own book, and he kept saying to me, "You got to write a book. You got to write a book." So I blame this whole thing on him. I kept telling him I don't have time. I can't do it. I work a lot, and I just didn't have time. But Jeff was invaluable in convincing me that I had a story to tell that would be important. There are books written by inventors, and there were books written by marketers and promoters. But there is really no book written from the inside of companies. And I run open innovation programs, so I'm on the inside, in the boardroom, listening when products are presented to what they're actually saying, and
Right.
that's a big difference. And so we felt that was really important. So interestingly enough, you sit down, and at first it was supposed to be, you write my story. Well, that took about one chapter. And then you say, well, I want this to be more than my story. I want it to be something that might touch on other people's lives. So we did a compromise. It's kind of written in first person singular. So it's kind of in story tell, but there's a lot of really important information. I've been through all this stuff at least 10 times. And I try to explain to someone like, you can do this too. It's something, but here's what you need to be aware of. And in the beginning, George, I'm not very good at sitting at my desk, and I've never been able to sit still. So what I did was, as I started to expand on the book and think about what it could be, I got these big Post-it notes, 2 feet by 3 feet Post-it notes, the biggest ones you could get at Staples. And I
Right.
started making chapters out of them and highlighting and dividing up the chapters. And then I put them all around my living room and dining room, and I would stand in the middle and I would vision what the book might look like. That helped my mind get around what it was I was trying to accomplish. And then I would move the Post-it notes around. Chapter 18 would become chapter 3, chapter 3 would become chapter 6. And doing that enough, I finally got a feel for what the book would be. And then it was just the hard work of writing it, getting it all out, not missing a beat, and then editing it. So it's
Getting
quite the
getting
process.
that. I'm sorry. I was going to say getting that visual with the large post-it notes, kind of like creating a product.
Yeah,
You right? It's the same.
very, very much so. I'm an old school on product development and building your prototype and testing it for function and making sure you know the mechanics and
Right.
then you base your patents on that. So yeah, it was very much the same as that. And then it was a continual, rewriting, shuffling things around. Of course, today you can cut and paste with a
Right.
computer, but Jeff was invaluable. I mean, I was involved in every word written in the book, but Jeff helped me get a lot of it down. He was always so helpful in some of the background and research as an inventor. great person to run ideas past, and just an all around great person. And Jeff's written his own books, and actually is helping the guitar player Al Di Meola, a very famous jazz guitar player, write his book now. So the whole thing was, I've heard about, a lot of the books in the inventor world had someone helping, including some of the well-known ones, but they don't give any credit. I want to give all the credit in the world to Jeff for what he brought to the table, and super guy.
Well, Warren, we talked before, and when you said about splitting up the book in a couple of parts. So, for everybody that's here and everybody that will see this, how important is that for an inventor really to kind of set the early stage to be successful? I know you talk about, laying a great foundation and things like that. If you can take us through, because as the book's fascinating reading. I told you earlier that I think a lot of comments are going to be people that we wish we had something like this 15 years ago. But you wouldn't have had all this experience 15 years
Well,
ago.
that's true enough. Yeah, that's true enough.
But the one theme that I took from the book, Warren, and we've talked a lot about it, is how can you tell the legitimate ways to go about something and the honorable ways and the honest ways compared to people getting tied up with the lack of a better term, the frauds out there?
Well, I start the book off. The book is about profitable inventing. And I start from the first line defining what that is. And that is either, profit comes from a lot of sales, and revenue, or it comes from cutting your expenses and being careful.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if my book is how popular it's going to be, because I'm not out selling gold mines, and the odds of success are very long in this business. So people who are pitching you on the fact that passive income and you can make this and all that, it's a red herring. These numbers, don't exist. And interestingly enough, these folks never share their success numbers. So I start right from the get-go asking people to take a pledge. And the pledge is basically, being aware that there's a lot of currents around you as an inventor that you have to be aware of, but you have a right to look out for your own interests. And you should look out for it. It's more than a hobby and a game. And before you spend a lot of money and lose a lot of money, make sure you know who's going to take it from you, and also be very aware of what's going on nationally in the innovation current, and sort of, the tumult between the big tech companies and what's going on in DC and all that. So it's an awareness book, but then I quickly get into, so the first half, George, is really dedicated to what you're talking about of the book. It's really about old school, doing things the right way. And, it always all starts with an idea. One of my main decisions on the book was not to put a light bulb on the cover. They wanted to put a light bulb. I put a lightning bolt. I wanted to be a little bit more stark and different.
Yep.
But it does start with an idea. I consider that more of an inspirational moment. But one of the things I talk about in the book is the first thing not the first thing, but during the book, is the first thing you should do is sleep on the idea and see if you still have it the next day or 3 or 4 days later. It still is important to you. Because a lot of times, we get ideas and they don't add up to anything. But what I try to go into in the first half of the book is ideas are not enough. Okay, this thing that things are simple, or there's ideas or whatever, and that you can license it, very rare. And if you pull it off, the royalty rates are much lower. And funny enough, we never hear about these people later with successes. That inventing is really hard work and old school, and all. The 120 plus licensing agreements that I've signed and other products that I've worked with all have been the result of having utility patents and functioning prototypes and those things. So I go into the importance of converting that idea to something real, about vetting the marketplace, about where to go professionally to make that happen, professional help. I talk a lot about trade shows. I talk about then developing it physically, and I think about
prototyping.
Yeah, prototyping, absolutely. I mean, some people can do it themselves. Sometimes you have to get help, through your club and other members of the club. But when you develop it, it proves function. I just had a product yesterday Friday. I like the product, and so I asked them for a sample, and they don't have one. So now they got to go out and prove it, and so it may not work the way they thought it would. And I've been through that. I've been down that road so many times I can't tell you. I get a lot of submissions. I get thousands of submissions a year. So I should back up and tell people that my background is I run open innovation programs for several large companies. So I am continually looking at products coming in. So I'm not a marketer selling you anything here. I'm just telling you that if you want to come to someone like me, you need to be prepared. And so I go into product development and prototyping, and then off of that prototype becomes the mechanical features that form the basis of your patents, which is your property, your property that you end up either protecting your product or licensing. Because guess what? Companies want to license, George, property. They don't want to license an idea. I mean, I'm not saying that it never happens. I'm just saying the odds are highly remote that happens. So my book is not meant to make things sound easy or to be win a popularity contest. It's all about doing things the right way.
Warren, touch on those, and then we go. And I don't want to. I want people to buy your book. I want them to read about what and how the story, wonderful story of how you came about to be the open innovation for Lifetime Brands and TTI and those. I thought that was fascinating of extraordinary timing, but you took advantage of that timing and those opportunities. And that doesn't, for people, a lot of people that you've spoke, I've heard you speak a number of times, and you have to be ready. I know you make a very big point about the importance of videos in the prototyping process, because most of what we learn is through a video. So the aspect of the idea for the prototype to the video and preparing, but give people a really sense, because I know when when I started out, when my wife heard what the odds were of profiting from your patent, she asked me if there was anything more difficult I could have picked to do than something. And you kind of broke it down into percentage.
Well, listen, there's a couple of currents going on there with what you just said. By the way, videos, I have a line in the book, and I copyrighted this, a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000 pictures.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And by the way, one of the companies I did, TTI, Tektronix Industries, the power tool group, for years, they wouldn't even consider a product unless you had a video. And by the way, to shoot a real video, you have to have a real working product. So it all ties in. But no, the odds are long. The odds are long. And how long? You should ask anybody that charges you money up front how long. They don't never want to give the numbers out. But if 100 people come before them, maybe only 2 or 3 will sign a licensing deal. And then of those, it doesn't guarantee success. So licensing agreements only the beginning of the process.
Right.
A lot of times things don't work. I've signed many licensing agreements that didn't generate any revenues. So on the backside of that, it's not success yet. A licensing agreement is like getting your patent issued. It's great to put up on the wall, but it's not the done deal. So you need to, at the same time as you're doing things the right way, you got to really watch your money. I say, watch your shekels. You can't get too far out. And I give stories in the book how I've made all these mistakes. I've made every mistake, George, 5 times, every one of them. I've fallen off my bike and split my chin so many times. I have a permanent scar. So you need to, be careful and work in time and make sure. It's one of the themes in the book, is you do things one step at a time, and you advance as there's recognition that something's going right for you, and you move it on. But these are the basic things that you need to do in order to, have a successful presentation. At the end of the day, you're inventing for end use consumers, not just the company that you're presenting to, because at the end of the day, it has to work for them. And so you have to hold yourself to higher standards than everybody else.
Warren, compared to years ago with now Google and the information that they have about patents and things like that, and the importance of taking somebody to following the steps. I mean, there's 1,000 things to do, and some people start at 1, some people start at 500, and some people, but you're still going to do all those thousands to get a product in your hands that you become excited about, so that you want to call someone back and say, hey, I thank you for the prototype. I loved your video, and I see some real value in this.
Yes.
So the excitement level builds up. So take me to that point where you now have seen a product that you're excited about, and what's usually the reaction of the inventor on the other side? What happens? Do they say, "Are you sending me money now, Warren?" Or
There's usually a lot of excitement. When I look at products all day long, and I go through it in the book. I have a submission process. I have a 12 standard questions that I
yeah,
ask from describe your product. I don't want to know all the details. Okay. I just want to know generically about it. Like if you've made a lawnmower that can mow the lawn in half the time, just say that I have a lawnmower that can mow in half the time. I don't want to know any details. I do want to know where you stand in the development process. Have you built a prototype? Have you filed a patent? Have you vetted the marketplace? Do you have CAD drawings? And that type of thing. So they're standard questions, but I look at those every day, and it's a lot like applying to Harvard. We'll stick with the Inventors Association of New England theme, and
yeah.
just like Harvard, I have to look through a lot of submissions, and I make decisions very quickly. I'm evaluating from the beginning not only the product but the person. So that means how you write, what you say, how presented you are, and many of the things I reject, just like Harvard.
Right,
Unless you're a really good hockey player, you're not getting
right.
it.
A lot
So,
apply, but only a few get in.
well, that's the thing. And so I try to be specific with people. Sometimes I say, it's been done before. You'd be surprised how many times I look up on Amazon and see something just like it because people haven't done their homework. Sometimes they haven't developed it enough. Sometimes it's not a really problem solving. Again, George, I stick to my industries I know, like housewares and DRTV and hardware. I don't get into a lot of areas I don't know. So I'm pretty much an expert, and I can go back in time and almost tell you whether it's been done before. So I
So
try to give feedback.
if if you're there now, and now somebody has kind of now in your office, so to speak, and say, "Gee, Warren's interested in this," and you say, "Okay, this is what you need to do now." Is that what you tell them next?
Well, that's where I get to. So a lot of people are no's, but then these gems jump out. They're unique, they're interesting. The person looks fascinating. I can tell a lot about you from just the application, and then I reach back out to you. Now sometimes it's a simple just more questions. Give me more information, and then if it requires it from that point, more in-depth knowledge and videos and stuff, then we sign non-disclosure agreements to make sure everybody's protected. And at that point, I still am usually working by email because it's hard for me. Once I get on the phone, George, this, I can't get off. So I can't spend my whole day on the phone. I just can't do
Right.
that. So eventually, though, if it's something that really is cool, I'm going to pick up the phone and call you. We're going to have a talk. And a lot of times then it's funny. People are surprised, they'll go, "Oh my God." And sometimes they're a little nervous. And I always say, well, listen, if you want to collect your thoughts and make your notes, then I'll call you back tomorrow, and I don't want anyone to ever feel pressure, but the idea is to have a conversation, to let me know a little bit more. And when you're having those conversations with someone like me, it's really important to listen and to share information. And it's kind of like an interview to some extent, talk about the same amount I talk. And, it's really important. I can learn a lot about people by reading their application and by talking to them, because I've been through this 100,000 times. I've been through
Right.
this more than 100,000 times. So you're probably not going to get a curveball, on the outside of the plate over on me. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So what I'm looking for is really where you stand, honest answers, because then I put it together and then I become your advocate within the building. Obviously the companies pay me and they hire me. And then I go to work with the senior vice presidents or the presidents of divisions and all to pitch them on the product. And then it usually, George, the next step usually gets to, we'd like to see a working prototype if they like it. And sometimes people aren't ready with that, and it slows the whole process down and it loses momentum. And other times they are. But I do spend a lot of time at that point guiding people and getting into depth with them through the system, which is kind of ironic because a lot of these people pay coaches to do this, and I'm the one that's really, doing it at no charge. But I do spend a lot of extra time to make sure that they understand the process properly. So even if they're not fully accepted at some point, they learn a lot going through that advanced process.
Warren, that's a good point. From experience I've heard about and some of my own is that when you get to the point and you like something, and then somebody says you need a prototype, and they said, I don't have any money. I don't have any money, and so now you've invited them into the room, you got them almost at, they're on second base now. Let's use some baseball terms here. They're on second base now. And okay, you're in scoring position now. And then how many times does the runner just stuck at second base? You get the next guys coming up and the run never scores. Is it usually that they can't go any further because of money, family, or something else that you saw a product but they can't go any further because they can't take that next step of
Well,
information you need?
yeah, I think all of the above. Um, and it's mixed messages. So I have to look at every one of them differently, because if it's just money that's stopping them, then I try to look at it with a new set of eyes, how we might help accomplish it. But here's the flip side of that record, okay? And that's people who just throw a lot of ideas against the wall and they never put any effort into it. And so I
Right.
have to determine that. Now, have you spent the last 6 months in this and really onto something special and just can't afford it? That's a different proposition, I would say. It's a really good question. By the way, with that, then somebody's just throwing ideas. I mean, I have some people that I look through, I give them an answer no, and then the next day I got a different thing. And and I think sometimes the coach that way to throw stuff out at you. And I would just say that your intent means a lot, and then we try to figure out from there, the best way to advance it. Because at the end of the day, I'm on your team trying to get it, approved. I've been doing this for 15 years for a lifetime. I didn't do it because we didn't do any licensing businesses. I brought in hundreds of millions of dollars of business to them. So we're not, that I get re-signed every year because of success. And so I live for this stuff, but my job is to also, vet and make sure I put into working order the things that come in, and I protect the building is what I do.
So so let's go to lifetime brands. Let's touch on that so that I know in your book that was I don't want to say a chance meeting, but that was kind of they had seen your earlier work with some products and success. So for to be called an inventor, and you make the claim in there. There's makers now, and there's product developers, and but to be classified as an inventor, when you get that cover page of your United States patent, and you can really then call yourself an
Yeah,
inventor,
yeah,
right? When you
absolutely.
issue that number, and forever you'll be an inventor.
No, I agree. I watch a lot of Jeopardy. I always wanted to be on Jeopardy so that I could be
You'd
always.
be you'd be
Yeah,
you wanted what part of Jeopardy do you want to be on? A contestant, or
I
did you
contest.
want to be the reading the
Well,
questions?
I want to be a contestant so I can say I was on Jeopardy, but I want to win one just so the rest of my life I can strut around saying I was a Jeopardy champ. Just one time. That's all. But that probably never happened. But yeah, inventors. Lifetime Brands is a large housewares company with 40,000 products. We're a publicly traded company on NASDAQ under the Signia LCUT LCUT. We're the largest, manufacturers of kitchen utensils in the world. We own the brand name Farberware, but we also, do products under KitchenAid and many other brands. We have 40 different brand names that we either own or license. We do Tal Silver, and we do Mikasa, all types of brands. So,
Yeah.
and our cutlery division is the biggest in North America. So I happen to have started my career, which I talk about in the book, at a department store in New York City, in Brooklyn, New York, called Abraham and Strauss.
Right.
I was the first kid from Connecticut to ever fall off the truck and become buyer at A&S. That has special meaning in New York City. People from New York will get that joke. But having said that, I met a lot of people, and Jeff Siegel, the chairman of Lifetime, had worked at A&S. Some of their division heads have been there. A lot of big department stores and companies. Bed Bath was started by A&S people and so forth. So, we had a lineage. They watched what I did with Misto and Smart Spin and some of the other products I had success with. So they had an interest in, and so when we got together in '08, they had just read a book called Blue Ocean Strategy about looking outside the normal seas for profitable ventures, and we put the platform, highly unique platform, together at that time, and it's worked out really well.
Warren, as we take it through now, and you've dealt with more inventors or product developers or makers, as they're called now, had a lot to do with. Let's get into the dark side a little bit, because the dark side seems for independent inventors, which you are very passionate about. This is what the other half of you do. Um, we have that point where you're, you someone comes to you and says, or they've come to us and says, someone just took all my money. They have not given me anything for it.
Yeah.
And what do I do now? And I know you've talked uh, to every group in the country, and about this problem is that what happens now? You have this incredible platform of working with these wonderful companies that understand now not all the good ideas come from inside those companies.
Right.
There's millions of people out there with ideas, and some take it as far as they can get and need that last leg of help. But some of them don't even get that far because they've been, you know,
Oh, it's
people with their hands in their pocket before they get anywhere.
well, one of the things I read about in the book is there was a recent Inventors Digest poll, I think within the last 2 years, that said that 78% of all inventors who got a patent thought that they were going to become a millionaire from the
Yeah.
patent. And like 56% think they're going to make $5 million. So let's not stop at a million. And the fact of the matter is that the percentage is way under 1%. Okay. And so there's a mindset, and inventors have either engineers by training or have engineering minds, or that sort of problem solving approach to life, but they don't necessarily have marketing skills or business skills to take the product out. And so they're very naive when it comes to business. And so what happens is, as it's America, there's people sitting, right out there who will help you, and the question is, you need to vet them carefully to see who can really help you, who not. And I go through this in the book extensively about the questions you should ask and what their success rates are. But a lot of people, and they're very clever. I mean, some are hit you over the head, and some click, and some come at you themselves, and some, have organizations that are secondary and tertiary organizations to the core business that they have, and you would never know who they were, and they sound like good guys, and they're giving away information, and their core business is to charge you, and by the way, in the American Inventor Protection Act of 1999, everybody seems to think that only talks about inventor submission companies, which we've all heard of, but it says invention marketing companies. Right. And so that's a little bit different. That can include a wide variety, and I don't think it's ever been court tested. So maybe we'll test that one day to see what it's like when I really finish writing the book and decide that I'm going to retire and get into some fun stuff. But having said all that, when it comes to invention marketers, there's a plethora of different approaches to that, and you got to be very, very diligent to make sure, because otherwise you'll find that hundreds, if not thousands, of people have come through some of these programs, and all but a handful, they boast about a licensing agreement here and there, and you see it, and their employees and their groupies and everything are always out there posting wonderful things. So it makes it seem like there's just this wild stuff going on, but the odds are very long. I talked recently to a former coach of one of these factories, and in over 200 students, he didn't have a single success, not one. Okay. And I've talked to another coach for 7 years, the same thing. So all I'm saying is have them share their numbers with you. And if they won't share their numbers with you because they say they don't have to or whatever, that should be a red flag. That's all I'm saying. So do your diligence. I try to talk about that. The other half of the be afraid, side that we're talking about here is the big tech companies. And, the ones that are having tremendous effect on the patent system, they were the ones that brought you the American Inventor Protection Act. I mean, not the American Invents Act, sorry, of 2012. The other. And the PTAB, which, George, you're very familiar and have sat in the sessions with us in Washington, D.C. about. And all that I write about in the book there is to be really, really, really aware of what's going on around you, okay? And a lot of us have spent a lot of time in DC and trying to get involved in this whole fight, to protect inventors.
Right. Warren, when it comes down to the difficulties, I'm sure you've heard stories when someone's developing a product and they're getting close and things like that. Family considerations comes into play quite a bit with somebody going forward with something. somebody has, maybe they got a product, you've seen it, they like it, and they just say, I can't do this anymore. Um, when you really find a product that you like and you want to take it to Lifetime or onto the as seen on TV market, so to speak, how important is it for that creator, that inventor, to stay involved in the process? Now they survived maybe, five people having their hands in their pocket and taking their money before they can get there, but they've made it now. What is their commitment after you get a product and you say, you know what, we're going to go with this one? How much do you want them to stay involved or not?
Very, very much so. Um, Look, I started doing licensing deals at Lifetime 15 years ago, and I still stay in touch with the inventors, and we still run things past them. Now, business-wise in the contract, we don't have an obligation, but we oftentimes ask what their thoughts are and on development and other issues. I just signed a licensing deal, George, last month. It was actually a Boston area inventor. It's a really cool product. It's fairly technical, and he was involved all the way along with all of the technical aspects of it, and still working with our development team to make sure it's done right. So when you're handing off a project, that's one of the things I look for in an inventor. Not only can we get the deal signed, but can they stay involved in the process in a productive way? Not a looking over their shoulder or told you so or trying to come up with a name for it, but really helping with the technical solutions to the problem. So I would say that that's very important. But at the same time, at the end of the day, the company's responsible, so they're going to make the final call. But they always want to have a great relationship. And a lot of the products at Lifetime that I've licensed, we refer to them by the inventor's name, not by the product itself. So it's a very cool relationship, and it's really been one that I've really enjoyed.
Warren, we took it now a little bit from the beginning. We're at the middle a little bit. With your experience and your wealth of knowledge for with Inventor Confidential, and there are stories out there. People say, "Well, we'll get you a licensing deal." Now I know, and but for our audience and others, if that licensing deal never makes money, that really can't be classified as a win. And used as if you have a batting average and things like that, and you can't hit 200,
No,
or if you're a teacher,
yeah.
and you say that, okay, they've had 200 deals and they haven't graduated one student, you would be fired as a teacher.
Well, listen, I totally agree with that. Look, I've lived in the real world on real profit and real results for a long time.
Yeah.
I had several successful products like Misto and Smartsman that, the inventors made millions of dollars on. And so I did quite well with it too.
Yeah.
So fortunate to have success there, but I haven't stayed on with the companies I'm doing without generating lots of money. So it's all a success game. That's where I talk about profit and success. You have people running around that pass themselves off as inventors and gurus and all this stuff. And you really start to look at their history. There's one that brags about this one product that was a big success, and it was a complete marketplace failure. So I know, as a professional, I know inventors get taken in and they all think that that's great and they all buy into the story and all that. But I dissect it and tear it apart, and I understand, I know who the good inventor. Josh Malone is a great inventor. Bunch of balloons sold, I don't know, 100 million units so far. Misto, we sold over 20 million of. These are the great inventors. That's who I look to for, my lessons of what I've learned and how I've got it through this. There's so many people that these licensing deals that get announced, sometimes they're in housewares, the industry, with companies I've never heard of. And I've been in the industry for 40 years. Right. So how big a company could they be? Right. What type of resources? And why don't we ever see these people 2 years from now that they have a big hit because it didn't materialize into anything? And in between, they're spliced in with marketing ads of people that these folks didn't even have anything to do with. They were just successful inventors. Like all of a sudden they mentioned Aaron Krause, who did Scrub Daddy. Well, nobody coached or helped Aaron Krause. He did it all himself. And then he did a deal with Lori Grenier. So she wants to brag about it, she can, but the others, have no right to be anywhere near that. So that's all part of the marketing. This is why I say in the book, you got to look very cleverly, at some of these things, because, just have your head on, be aware of it. At the end of the day, see, I think profitable business partnerships result, George, from both parties making money. When one side's making money and inventors aren't, I start off the book with it. if you want to bake a pie and give it all away, then, I'm not your guy and this is not the book for you. But if you want to make money on your pie, then this is what you have to do.
Everybody gets to eat the pie, Warren. Everybody gets to
Well,
eat.
that's one of the problems. Everybody will take your money.
Yeah.
And by the way, so think about this. They make money on services for stuff that's not successful. And that's just not sustainable. It's sustainable for them. By the way, they have dreams of passive income. They're hitting their dreams and they're telling you should have your own dreams, but you're not making your dreams, okay? Because they're the ones having to sell you to keep, because it becomes a cash flow enterprise. They have to have so many X number of people going through the program in order to keep the revenues going, okay? Right. And the thing is, for me, I get paid by the companies. I don't have a staff. I have no cash flow obligations or anything because I've had a lot of success. So it enables me to, well, somebody told me to get off my high horse recently, but I was like, I wouldn't say I'm on a high horse. I'm just able to tell people the real deal without having to worry about financial, success or other things, which enables me to be much more objective and much more helpful to them. Do you know how many people have come to me who have paid thousands of dollars for help? I had one last week. It was a bad product. Somebody should have told the person on the first day, this is not going to make it. And yet they took all their money, they coached them, and I have to be the one to tell them it's not going to make it. And this is what's sort of upsetting to me. I see this all the time, and it's really what had me write the book. So,
Warren, that's a great segue into, and you've championed them. I've heard you speak all over the country, and at shows and things like that. I just speak in Washington in 19 when we were there to. You and I were partnered that day, running around meeting senators and representatives.
I have a great picture of you, Georgie, on my website.
I saw that, Warren. Thank you very much for that. And I never realized how short my legs were until I had to walk around with you for an entire day, and then you were about 100 yards ahead of me, and only a couple of times did you look behind to see if I was still with you or not. I didn't know, but I had to keep you in sight. But it was a wonderful time. But there, we had groups from all over the country, the Inventor Clubs, which you are very passionate. It's the framework of the UIA.
Yep.
All the groups around the country, and I know you try to direct people who are kind of lost in the wilderness to get to one of these local clubs because they provide a lot of resources, many free, some by very nominal membership fees like we do, and to attend meetings, to ask for help within people who have done it before, made the mistakes before, and you can get a lot of experience for that. I don't want to say no investment. You should be investing your time to research these things and get to a local group.
No question about it. Listen, the Inventor Clubs are the backbone. The United Inventors Association has been working with clubs for years. I don't know how many exact clubs are in the country, but there's probably 60 or 70 decent ones. You guys are a super club. We have them in Chicago and Miami and all over the country. To me, it's locally where people can meet and gather and learn during these virtual days. Some people can sit on other club meetings. I do have a section in the book about nonprofits. We're a nonprofit. U.S. Inventor, which is an advocate for inventor rights, is a nonprofit. Inventor Project is. Not all of them are. There's one club that I point out in the book that's, that says they're based on groups. They're not. They're a offshoot of a private for-profit company, and it's a lead generating front. Okay, and so I don't know how to try to explain that to people or what it means, but just keep your head about you. But I think clubs, by and large, many of them are nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofits. That's kind of important because you want to know that people aren't profiting off you as they give you advice, and they're making a decision based upon for the right reasons. So you can read my section on nonprofits, but I'm with you 100%, George. The clubs are a really important backbone for inventors in this country.
Warren, take into the UIA now, and you work with the UIA as your, I think your book's going to do remarkably well. I really think it is. It's been a great read where you, like I said, have sectioned it off into real life experiences and then product experiences, things with your relationship with the USPTO, Warren, goes deep
Yep.
for a lot of years. And I don't think enough of people around the country realize how important that is that you've been the link between the USPTO and the independent inventors, bringing to light a lot of the problems that, let's say, they wouldn't have been aware of had we not have an advocate like you. Can
Well,
you speak to that for a minute?
yeah, thank you. So first of all, the United Inventors Association was born out of the USPTO in the early 90s. So we have a direct connection there. When I first got involved in it in 07, 08 and became the president, one of the first people I met was David Kapos. He's the director of the patent office. We became really good friends. We still are to this day. Um, we do a lot of outreach things involved with their InventionCon event, helping get speakers and speak there ourselves. We've done our own, as you know, club events there, George, with leaders.
Yeah.
But it's also opened the door for me to be on the National Pro Bono Patent Commission, which I've had several meetings last week in this, which is giving access to low-income folks to get free patents. It also got me on the National Council for the Empowerment of American Innovation, which is a Chamber of Commerce or Department of Commerce rather initiative to make sure that folks, minorities, women, rural folks, and military have access to the patent system. And I'm also on the United States Intellectual Property Association board. So I've gotten involved in a lot of other issues. And just as early as last Friday, I was on with the PTAB group trying to set up a pro bono PTAB opportunity there for people who call before PTAB to get help with their individual inventors. And I just did, I'm also involved in the small claims patent court. So people might be surprised at how many nonprofit pro-inventor initiatives that I'm involved in besides the UIA. And it's my pleasure to be involved. And I'm not the only person. Josh Malone does a wonderful job. And Randy Landerow, they do US Inventor. Charlie Sauer, there's other folks. But we're the real deals that are really helping, and not the people that it's just another thing to market to people with pictures in Washington D.C. We're actually doing the roll up our sleeves hard work stuff, and we represent real organizations. So we try our best, and I always try to think about what's best for the inventor, and that's what we'll try to do.
I certainly think what you brought to light to Warren is it takes hard work on a lot of people's part to make products commercially successful all the way down the line, and sometimes it takes years. I think you've told me before that you've had some products that you thought were really good and then it just kind of died off. And before I know we got some Lex's giving me the little video chat. Now we have some questions coming in which I want to get to. But, I strongly recommend your book to a lot of people. I know it's going to do commercially very well. But just two things before we go to questions. You're a product that you passed on. I put you on the spot. I didn't talk to you about this before. A product that you passed on, because you told me, and you probably used 10,000 band-aids on that chin from falling off falling. But that's a good experience. But product you passed on, and then one that you didn't think was going to be one that was a smash.
Well, the product I passed on is easy. I live in fear of passing on an item and having someone come back later and say, "Oh, you missed it," because I live in complete fear of that. But I had a product submitted. It was in the shape of a long, like, dachshund dog, and you put a hot dog in it and you sliced it into pieces, and it was a little bit more children's oriented, where the pitch was there's a lot of kids that choke on hot dogs. And I was in the food business for a long time and I never heard of that. And I didn't probably take it as seriously. And plus it was kind of fun and goofy looking and everything else. And I respectfully declined. And they ended up licensing another company that sold over 1 million of them to Walmart. And so I'm not sure if it was ever quite our product. So I'm not too hard on myself, but that's one that I for sure missed. Look, I've had, many of products that I've worked on, the Smart Spin, when we first got it and looked at it, that's the Lazy Susan that pulls off the shelf and stacks containers, and 1 cubic foot, you can put 24 covers and lids. It was just unbelievable how well it did. I never would have guessed it. And then it's just sustained, and it lasted for years. And it was like every day I'd pinch myself that, oh my God, who would have known on some of these things? Food huggers. I'll tell you, odor absorbing splatter screen was something that I looked at. I thought it was pretty cool. It was basically a splatter screen with a carbon charcoal filter that takes the odors out. I thought it was a cool product, but gone on to sell millions of them, so much bigger than I thought. So it can definitely happen that way. So I don't ever like to think I know it all, but you do, it's hard to tell sometimes until you actually get it out in front of the customer how it's going to do. And by the way, you should not get excited until it starts selling and you get reorders, because anything up to that point it's too early to get excited.
Right. Very good advice. Very good advice. I'm going to ask Lexa to forward me. Warren, one other thing while Lex is teeing up some questions here. Part of the book too dealt. I want to go back to the issue about independent inventors. Do you think it's going to be in 2020? We experienced something like never before. Did you see more submissions coming in during last year?
It's a really good question. It was a bunch of mixed currents. I mean, I heard people go out and say, "Oh, Inventor is bigger than ever," and blah blah blah, which was not supported necessarily by the facts. Patent filings actually were off. I remember pointing that out to somebody who supposedly knows better a few times. But what I found, at least on my end, with several companies, is successful companies like Lifetime had a record year, and Home Depot and stuff. They were understocked, so their focus was on executing the products they already had, and if they sold out, was getting other goods and supply, keeping the supply line going so they could keep their business running. And then I couldn't meet in the building. It's been over a year since I've been to Lifetime's headquarters, so it's been a hard year. We only did a couple licensing agreements, and their focus was elsewhere. What I believe, George, there's a lot of pent up going on now, and when we open back up, you're going to see a shift back to innovation and things coming out of the space. But for now, a lot of executives have just been trying to stay alive and survive, and so the theory is there that we all innovate, but I think the effects of that are going to come, in a maybe even a mini tsunami afterwards. That's my thought.
I remember when taken back to David Capos went around the country and met with different inventor groups. And I remember myself and Bob Hosline, the Iron Man of the Inventors Association of New England, which I told him I will never break his record for being the president for 20 years, that's for sure. But I remember him saying that, when he was in the private sector, and then as soon as he got to be director of the patent office, he was contacted by his counterpart in Japan and asked when the United States was going to really unleash the backlog of patents that haven't been looked at the patent office, and how kind of underfunded what is really considered the lifeblood of the American economy, because every patent that comes out of it is a potential business.
Dave did a great job of accelerating the review of patents, and then he even instituted a high speed where you have to pay like $4,000, but you can expedite and have it reviewed in a year. But it's there's always going to be a bit of a backlog, and a lot of them aren't successful. I remember spending time with a company looking at a fairly famous large consumer goods company, looking at their backlog, a portfolio of things that didn't go forward, and I even tested a few of them and they didn't work out. So I don't know, you just keep, it's like the ocean, Georgie, it just keeps coming in, and you just got to keep staying with it,
Lexa.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
I have several really good questions here just to start off with.
Sure.
JMW writes, for a patented item with a working prototype, what are the advantages of using an agent versus going directly to a manufacturer? Let's see. Directly to a manufacturer and selling it on Amazon. Also, what are the liabilities for consumer accidents using the invention?
Well, if you go to market yourself, you have to have insurance. I'll enter this in reverse order. And you have to have liability insurance. And there's standard rates for that. And insurance companies make a decision upon reviewing your product what that costs, and that has to be a cost of goods. So that's, if you're going yourself, you must protect yourself. You also should have a company, at least an LLC, if not a C Corp, that protects you. LLCs are fine, along with liability insurance. And that's essential. And if you ever sell it to a retailer, they insist that you have X amount of dollars, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million of coverage. So you have to build that in. If you license the product to a bigger company, then they will carry that insurance. But they want you to be honest about anything you learned along the way as far as liability issues as you develop the product. And so to some degree, they ask you to indemnify them if you didn't share certain information. So these are sort of technical things. And I do get into that in the book, but really the decision whether you go alone or whether you license is one of the essential ones. And that's all over the book. Look, if you go to market on your own, you take all the risk, you need capital. You gotta, not only develop, which is the same in both cases, but you need to then manufacture the product, quality control it, ship it in, land bridge it across the country, put it in fulfillment centers, have sales teams, all that's necessary to run a business, and then keep reordering before you can put your profits out. Licensing is, you make a lot less per unit, but larger companies become sort of your angel investor. They cover a lot of these things. And it's a smoother, easier, gentler path to market. So both involve the same initial product development stages, but completely different paths down the road. And all those questions and more will be described in the book.
Excellent. All right. Hopefully that answered your question, whoever JMW is. If not, write me back. Okay, from Rudolph, I have a patented product, but I'm wondering how far I need to take the design. Will an interested party take the prototype and make it more appealing, etc.? Or must the inventor make the perfect final design?
Good, really good question. The answer is no. You don't have to make the perfect final design. As long as you make one that proves function, it doesn't even have to be attractive. You want to know that it works. I can't tell you how many licensing deals I signed early on that the product could never be built and never ever be made. As far as what level a company, will get involved in, that obviously depends upon the company, but they usually have engineering departments, or they have product development departments that will recognize the fact that your product may not be the prettiest one, but they will be able to if you build a working, functioning prototype, that they can figure out how to take it from there. I've been through that process many, many times in Lifetime Brands. As opposed to this experience that I had the other day. I know I keep saying I had this experience yesterday or the day, but I have these experiences every day. Someone listened to one of my talks with one of the Western clubs the other night, and they sent me in a patent filing and a patent drawing. I mean, I have to read through 3 pages of claims and look at pictures of, drawing. I have no idea. I said, I don't have an hour and a half to figure this out. You gotta, come back when you're ready to this. And so when you present those type of things to companies, they either don't take you seriously or they move on. So again, my whole book is written from the perspective of giving you the best chance. And by the way, there's some books that talk about open innovation and some interview open innovation directors. There's very few open innovation directors in America. That's usually an adjunct to sales or legal departments. I'm actually 24/7 involved in this. So I'm giving you straight up information the way it really is. It's not a game for me. This is real life information. So I'm just telling you, if your product doesn't come in presented the right way, you may not have a chance of getting to, as Georgie says, second base.
Warren, isn't I don't want to take away from people's questions, but one of the things too, cost of an item. You look at what somebody says. If you can make it for $2, you want to sell it for 10.
Well, 100%. Look, unfortunately, it's not easy. You not only have to solve a problem, build a product that's unique, has mechanical functions that work and that prove out, but you have to build at the right price. And if it's not the right price, any of these things can harm the success of the product. Do you know that there's 67% fewer units? Fact, 60% fewer units sell it at $29.99 than they do $19.99. So that means that product at $19.99 you're going to sell 100 of, you suddenly only can sell 33 at $29. So look, if you can make enough margin, maybe that works for you. But when it comes to licensing, it's a big difference, and maybe that company won't sign if they think they can only do a third of the amount of the business. So cost becomes important, functionality, ability to mass produce, all these things become important in the process.
Lex?
Okay, just as a follow-on to Rudolph's question, does a design need to be patented worldwide, or is a US patent all that is needed at the start? I worry about China.
All right, so let's make sure we pull that word design out, because there's design patents and utility patents, and I don't want to confuse that. Utility patents are harder to get, they take longer, they involve mechanics as opposed to design, which is the way a product aesthetically looks or is shaped. We describe that a lot in the book. Utility patents are usually more valuable, they're harder to get, but they're usually easier to protect. Design patents are a little harder to protect. You can do worldwide filings. I talk at length in the book about everything from PCTs, worldwide patent filings, which enables you, gives you 18 months to file in individual countries. US is much more tied into the worldwide patent system now than it was before 2012. The clock starts ticking in any country, but if you want to file in a country, you have 18 months to do that, I believe it is. And then you have to make a decision. I mean, I'm talking about going from a provisional patent application, which is inexpensive, to a non-provisional conversion. So I know I'm talking technically, but there's not enough time tonight to go through this, but read the book and get a better feel for it. But you got to make all these decisions. But going worldwide on a patent, you know, I know we all have these dreams of going worldwide in protection, but it's quite expensive. And quite frankly, the filing only gives you the right to go in with a legal team and fight it in those countries. So much business is done here, right in the good old USA, that most people just focus on this market and stick to here. But I spent an extensive amount of time talking about the whole patent system, and I think it's worthy for a novice inventor to read it.
Mm-hmm. From Joe, with necessity being the mother of invention, where do you see the hot markets for invention today? And as part of that, he also asked, what's the first step in submitting an invention to your organization?
Well, first of all, Joe, you're wrong. Frank Zappa was the mother of invention. All right, I should get to that, but I don't know the young people. It's a good question. A couple of things. In the houseware space, in general, products that solve problems, make things easier in the kitchen are primo. Things that are environmentally sound or less stress on the environment are very, very helpful. Things that save cost or reduce time are very, very helpful. I talk in more general terms. Gadgets, cutlery, you know, are popular, more popular necessarily than sometimes cookware and tabletop. But there's always room for a new hit product. It's like music genres. You know, you have blues and you have jazz and you have rock and roll, but you know a good song when you hear it. I heard what was the Bobby Darin song? Under the Sea or whatever, Under the Sea. It was like a 50s, you know, melodic. And I heard it
Under the Boardwalk. Was that Under the Boardwalk?
Sea, you know, Beyond the Sea. Remember Bobby Darin back in the 50s? And all of a sudden I never would have listened to that music. And I was like, hey, so, you know, you never know on these things as you pursue something, as you vet your product, you know, don't always pigeonhole it, you know. But as far as industries, you know, housewares is a huge inventor submission industry. So is hardware, pets, medical devices, you know, exercise equipment, auto, you know, is all good, you know. So I'm a big believer. We haven't talked about tonight in trade shows. When the world comes back, attending trade shows, attending inventor booths and events at trade shows, learning the industry you're trying to exploit. You can learn more in a day or two walking around a trade show than you can in a year at your desk. So I talk about that a lot too. So I don't know if that answered the question, but a couple of thoughts on that.
I think he also wanted to know I don't know, Joe, if you're specifically talking about Warren's organization, but you ask, what is the first step in submitting an invention to your organization?
Yeah, so for me, you can go on Tuttle Innovation, and then you click on either housewares or hardware or DRTV, which is my areas of, and I have a submission questionnaire, and that's the first thing I'd like you to fill out for me. And then I'll get back to you with more information. And then if you want to supplement that with sell sheets and other things, we can certainly take a look at that. I'm sure every organization is a little bit different. You have to do your homework and research to see who are inventor-friendly companies. They change all the time because people's rules change all the time. I would suggest going online, first see companies that make products that are in your arena, then go online, check out their websites. Here's a little trick. I call the switchboard operator. And if they have a clue of what I'm talking about as an inventor having an outside idea and know who to send it to, it's a good sign that they've been through it before. If they have no idea what you're talking about, then it's probably not a good sign. So again, all the stuff I talk about in the book.
I just put your website address in the chat box, Warren, TuttleInnovation.com, everyone.
And you'll see a picture of George and me up at Senator Murphy's office in the Hart building.
I'll dig that up. Rudolph asked, my patented invention, is for the boating aftermarket industry. How do I determine the proper parties to contact?
Well, that's a good question. So look, boating, it's like camping, it's like hunting, there's a lot of boaters in America. So it's certainly a big industry, but not everybody in America has a boat. Okay. It's not like every household in America has a kitchen, right? So there's 130 million kitchens. So if you make a new garlic press, you're going to appeal to 130 million households. If you're in the boating business, you can probably cut that down to 20 million people or something. So it's a little bit more niche business. So you really have to do a little bit more research. You've got to look for companies that are in your space. You've got to look for boat shows. I know there's a lot of regional boat shows, and see what companies are in that field. If you're selling boat accessories, you got to pine down. I'm not an expert on that arena, but you got to pine down on who they are. You can do that online. And by the way, a lot of these trade shows have virtual programs now, or they have resources that you can tap into. Maybe if you become a member of the organization, sign up for the boating industry magazines, do your research, get to know, whatever you're going to do in life and exploit, become an expert in it and push yourself to becoming really knowledgeable. Don't just mail it in, really pine down and have it absorb you. If it doesn't, and you're just sending in an idea because you think it's clever, it probably won't have as much success as if you really, have the answers and know what you're doing and develop it.
George Peters, never heard of him, asks, is it worth it to get a patent if PTAB can derail the process?
Oh, George.
One of these questions that keep coming up at, I don't know if other club leaders get them, Warren, and I try to explain that companies really don't, and certainly you know better than anybody, companies really don't go after your patent unless you start to make a lot of money. And by that time, it's a company, and it's maybe you've partnered already with a company that has deep pockets.
No, 100%. And so, look, the PTAB fight and the fight for patents is a little bit more fringe. And for those of us who are involved in it all the time, we're much more versed on the technical, mechanical aspects of it. Companies like Lifetime Brands have no idea, this battle's going on. They're still licensing, and they want it to be based on a patent, and they're going to review your patent. Now, here's the beautiful thing. They're $1 billion company, and they have a team of lawyers. And if they license your product and they have the patent as well, and they have a brand they associate it with, it gives them a stable of bullets to go after other people and shut them down. So it's not going to PTAB. And if it goes to PTAB, they'll deal with it. They'll deal with Amazon. They're not coming after you as an individual now. So patents are still important. And I try to tell my friends, because I'm on the front lines, they still matter, and they still differentiate you from other people that just have ideas. So don't give up yet. And I know it's discouraging sometimes, but they still have importance, and I still believe in the system. We just have to make them stronger. That's all.
Lex, I have a couple of more follow-ups on that. one of the things too, Warren, with
Only 4 more questions for George Peters. And then we have to go.
well, no, we have another question here, but the importance of what the UIA does with getting things corrected that might have been overlooked or loopholes from before, and how that education process from the UIA does get things changed in laws being redone or policy changed at the patent office, right?
Okay, well, listen, we're first of all, U.S. Inventor's done a lot of great things. That's Paul Morinville, originator, and Randy Landerow and Josh Malone. They've actually gotten bills stopped. You know that were it's hard to get things passed these days, but they get some pretty onerous bills stopped. We've been a little bit more involved in the patent office. You know, I've been behind the scenes with the PTAB folks. We've given a lot of advice. I'm continually throwing things out there. The pro bono position with PTAB is something that I presented to them, and now they're running with it. So, you know, what you do is you build credibility. You know, Dave Cablis gave me a nice endorsement in the book, and he said, much to my surprise, that when he was the director of the patent office, he listened to me all the time, which is pretty amazing because very few people actually listen to me, especially at home. But but it was really nice to know that we have credibility. And I try to say that we're the rational voice of the inventor community. We're trying to solve problems, bring people together, and solve these rational problems at the end of the day, and represent our shareholders. So we have had an effect, and it's felt good having an effect, because I'll tell you, when AI was passed and HR 9 and some of these other bills came through, that I could go on for another 2 hours. It just gave me a pit. I couldn't sleep at night that the patent system was going to go down while I was president of the UIA. And, you know, I was going to be put down there with like Louis the 16th, who I think got beheaded, right? So I was, you know, it was a legacy thing too. And I'm so happy that Josh has come in and other folks who've gotten involved in the crusade. And there's other folks around the country, you know, real folks that have really cared about it. And George and you and other inventor leaders that have come down and participated in the cause. It's been our voice is being heard more and more now. So it's a good thing.
Lexi, we have another question?
Yeah, from Olin. Hope I pronounced that right. Suppose I have a gadget with utility application filed that I believe can be manufactured inexpensively, but for which initial prototypes will be obviously much more costly and be larger and less appealing than the real thing. How hard should I work to close that gap before I start showing prototypes?
Okay, a couple of things. When you say you have utility application filed, is that a provisional or a non-provisional? So that's a big moment when you have to convert from a relatively inexpensive provisional. But to go on to the second part of your question, I don't care how big they are or ugly they are. It doesn't matter. They just need to prove function. It's 100 times easier for a company to take something that you've worked out the kinks and the details on, and then just to make it smaller. In fact, I had a wonderful example of that one early product I brought in the Lifetime Brands. It was a julienne, a hand-pressed julienne that the inventor made it way too big. And I remember looking at it and it was like, make it smaller. Remember that famous scene in Back to School, George, with Rodney Dangerfield turns to Kurt Vonnegut and says, make it smaller. Anyway, you have to know the movie. But make it thicker. No, make it thicker. Yeah, make it thicker. But anyway, it's you know, proof of function is that matters. That is the essential ingredient here. And if money is tight, then you need to think about how you spend that money. Maybe you file for a PPA, don't file for a full non-provisional conversion, and put a couple of your free dollars into developing the product. But even if it's larger and it's ugly, it still works for me. It still proves it can be done, and it answers that question. That's a very valuable step right
there. Did you want to start everyone to start their video?
Yeah, bring everybody back. Yeah, bring everybody.
And everybody could start their video and unmute.
Yeah.
Just for the end here. That's called unmute.
So for a lot of these questions, I think if you read the book, you'll get more depth and perspective on it. And I think it'll be helpful. I think it reads pretty well. It's meant to. So hopefully you can divide up the book in sections and go to the ones that you want. But I think some of these questions, you'll have a little bit more in-depth answers to what you're looking for.
I think, Warren, as Lex is going to bring everybody back here, I'm going to expand my view so I can see everybody now.
I've asked everyone to start their video. I can't actually do it myself.
Yeah, if everybody could start their video, if they can hear me, would be great. If you like, if you not like, but
doesn't work.
I want to thank everybody for their. I hope it was invaluable. Some of you, who's heard Warren speak before? Show of hands. And I know David up there in the corner, and
I
Bob,
am
and
too,
other
Tony.
people. Say again?
George, yeah, I hear Warren speak a few times.
Yeah.
How many have seen Led Zeppelin?
I saw the part in your book that you were disappointed you didn't get to go to Woodstock, but you were.
Yeah, but I did go, George. I went last year to the 50th anniversary.
Oh, cool.
And I spent 4 days, and it was I'm going to get killed for this. It was 4 days of drugs and sex. It was Bayer, aspirin, and Lipitor.
Yeah.
And I was with my wife, who I've been married to for 40 years. But anyway, but it was
Warren,
great.
I saw you speak at MIT, and I thought you were really energetic and entertaining and fun.
Thank you. Thank you. It was always a pleasure to go to MIT. It was an honor to go there, and it was always a thrill to come up and you guys are a great club, so thank you.
Warren, your book comes out tomorrow. Now, where?
So it's available on Amazon. I do have a website, inventorconfidential.com. A tremendous website that was put together by Alexis Sister-Torrey. And it's awesome. And so you can learn a lot about the book. I have 18 endorsements. The book is endorsed by the president of Home Depot, Ted Decker. Who's a friend. It's endorsed by Chan Kim, who wrote Blue Ocean Strategy, the #1 selling business book in the world. And Dave Kapos and many other awesome people. And it tells you, where you can get it and so forth and so on, and a little bit about the background of the book. So you might enjoy it, but it's available. Tomorrow it starts shipping on Amazon. So tomorrow's the big day.
When you go out now around on your world tour for the book and things like that, Warren, I want to thank you very much on behalf of certainly our club and the other clubs around the country. I know you've been working hard with this. It takes a lot for what you did. You kind of laid it all on the line for people to follow very easily, but you let them to know it's not easy. That's what I got out of it, is that it's not for the faint of heart what we do. There's a lot of disappointment that goes in with it, but now you have given people, I think, more than a fighting chance with the information of being able to educate themselves now in one spot of how to, create an invention and profit from it.
Well, and if it's not working out, George, I try to give you tips to let you know that, so that you can save your money and move on. I have a chapter in the book about a complete disaster that I had, where I put my family at risk. And one of the reasons I do all this is because I survived that terrible time. So it's not all fun and games, but just it's one thing not to succeed, but just be careful of getting hurt. That's the main thing.
Right. Does anybody have anything left? I want to get big day tomorrow for you, Warren. I know you don't have anybody else to talk to tonight after you get done with us, so I want you to save your voice for all the maybe talk shows and things like that you'll be going on over the next month and things like that. So,
well, thank you, George. Thanks, Lexa. Thanks for all you guys do. I don't know if everybody realizes how much you guys do behind the scenes to help the UIA and Inventor. So it's really, really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Warren, you take care of yourself. Thank you, everybody, for being part of the group. Thank you for your participation in Invent New England. We're going to be announcing after Warren's book comes out. Maybe he'll come back the early part.
Oh, hey, George,
Yes.
I forgot. You have Liz Dougherty next is your next speaker. I was just talking to Liz today, so I told her I'd give her a plug.
Yeah, yeah, okay. If you hadn't, I would have told her that you forgot all about it too, Warren. I would have told her that. Yes, April 12th. We have Elizabeth Doherty, who is the Northeast Outreach Director for the United States Patent Office. And we have a gentleman that's going to speak just before him. My point is right over him right here. David, I don't know if he can hear me. David is going to be our speaker on the 5th of April. Talk about some patent law, as he's a patent attorney. And Warren, it's because of you with coming around to all the groups and things like that, that our groups have certainly risen up to be able to get speakers that can cover a lot range of specific items for our different groups. So I want to thank you that also, Warren, for the UIA and everybody at the UIA who helps the inventors around the country. To let everybody know, UIAUSA.org. Right on there, there is find a club. Our friend Lexa, with guidance from Warren and Deb and Kathy from the UIA, was able to combine a list of up-to-date clubs around the country where you can sit in right from where you're sitting on other club events all over the country. I've been able to do that. They've been wonderful. Took Lexa many months to get all the names together and things like that with the help of the UIA. And as we add to that with more resources for that, but the UIA is where we want to direct people first, and then to get to a local club where we all get to meet again in person, where we can have in-person invention pitches. So you can be prepared when you go knocking on Warren's door and say, I've done all those steps, Warren, in your book. I'm ready for you. So
thank you for all that help, Lex. It was awesome.
Of course.
okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Yep, buy the book.
And we'll be talking with you soon. Thanks, Warren.
Good luck, everybody. Yeah.
Tony, take care of yourself. We'll be in touch with everybody.
I'm gonna be talking to you soon. Okay.
Okay.